What's going on, everybody? Josh Engleman for Awesemo.com, and this is my DraftKings MMA Contenders video. My top 5 plays for this Saturday's UFC card, which has just been amended. Derek Lewis, Curtis Blades, that fight is off. Blades has COVID, so these are my top 5 guys now that that fight is off. Rachel Ostovich, Nate Maness, Takeshi Sato, Miguel Baeza, Parker Porter rounding out the bottom of my top 10. Who will be in the top 5? We're going to find out, but first, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you know when this and all of our other content goes live. Follow me on Twitter at Josh Engleman so you can get updates to my sim results as we get closer to lock. And finally, let me know in the comments section, who are your favorite fighters on this card? It's time to dive into the top 5. Let's kick it off at number 5. Coming in number 5, we've got Anthony Smith, 8,500. I've got him projected for 65 fantasy points. Wins this fight about 55% of the time. Shows up in the optimal lineup 37% of the time. Hasn't been great for Anthony Smith basically since his fight against John Jones. Hoping that he can get back onto his winning ways. I don't mind that $8,500 price tag. Devin Clark, a little bit of an underdog. I certainly prefer Smith to Clark, even taking into account their salaries. I think Smith looks pretty solid. You're not going all the way up into those high 9s, and at this point, we are missing a 9K fighter. I think Smith is great value no matter how you're trying to build out that lineup. I would have liked to see a slightly higher sim percentage, but 55% works at that $8,500 price tag. That's enough value for me to go to Anthony Smith. Coming in at number 4, a person that I think is going to be a fantastic value, 7,400 for Anderson dos Santos, projected for 58 fantasy points, wins this fight outright 40% of the time. That's pretty high for a $7,400 fighter. Shows up in the optimal 40% of the time as well. I think this is a really nice spot. I'm not ultra worried about Martin Day. The gap in salary, I think, is bigger than the gap between their odds of winning this fight. Dos Santos looks like a fantastic option if you need to save some salary. I think Dos Santos is very live to be in your cash lineup as one of the underdogs you'll need to fill out your full lineup. Pairs very easily with any of the other high-end studs. As you can see, spoiler alert, in that best pairs section, probably going to be able to figure out who is going to be highly ranked. But for right now, Dos Santos has a better chance to finish this fight inside a distance than you normally see on a $7,400 fighter. And that's enough to get him to number 4. Coming in number 3, 8,900. That would be Spike CARLYLE. CARLYLE taking on Bill Algeo. 73.9 fantasy point projection. Wins this fight pretty frequently, 62% of the time. And now that there's a bit less on the high end, shows up in the optimal 47% of the time. I think that's a pretty efficient spot to land. We're going to be talking a little bit about someone slightly more expensive. We're going to even transition to someone a bit more expensive than that. The next 2 fighters that we have to look at are going to come in at 9K and at 9,100. So if you need that extra money, if you don't have that $200 to spare, I think Spike CARLYLE looks really solid. That ratio of odds of being in the optimal to the win, pretty high for this particular card. Now that we're only down to 10 fights, it's kind of problematic. I think Spike CARLYLE and the slight savings you get coming in under that 9K mark is going to be enough to get it done. Now, from a GPP perspective, I just like this fight in general, as evidenced by my number 6, Parker Porter. But at number 2, I'm going to Josh Parisian. 9K, projected for 78.6 fantasy points, 65% chance to win this fight, 54% of the time Parisian showing up in the optimal lineup. The odds of Parisian finishing this fight inside the distance are quite high. That's enough to give him the second best fantasy point projection on the slate behind my number 1. This is the direction I want to go, but I definitely want to have exposure to Porter as well. I think this fight is likely to end quickly. I think Parisian could put a pretty high total on the board, and if it doesn't work out that way, Porter, one of my favorite options in the 7K range. We don't want to touch on him too much, though. Josh Parisian should be one of the guys you have in most of your lineups. Again, more often than not, 54% of the time. That's more than 50, obviously. 54 greater than 50. More often than not, Josh Parisian is going to be in the optimal lineup this Saturday. As if there was any doubt at number 1, now that the main event is off, 9,100. I'll probably whiff on it, but MUDAERJI coming in at that top spot, projected for 93 fantasy points in a 3-round fight, wins 73% of the time, shows up in the optimal. That is not a typo, 73% of the time. This is the no-brainer. There's enough value on this slate in the 7K range that 9,100 is not a salary that's going to be a problem, and that is why you see that sim odds rise to the top. Fantastic pairing with Anderson Dos Santos because of that salary savings. With Dos Santos at 7,400, really helps to offset Sue's $9,100 tag. He's the second most expensive fighter on the card now behind Kai Kamaka. Kamaka not even remotely close to as good of a play. Likely to win as frequently? Yes. But I don't think he's as likely to have a monster score. Sue is that guy very clearly. Number one with a bullet. There is a giant gap between 1 and 2, and that's why you need Sue. Alrighty guys, those are my top 5s and obviously my top 10 plays for the UFC card this Saturday. Once again, a reminder in case you missed the news, Curtis Blades, Derek Lewis, that fight is off. We're down to 10 fights. So check this one out. This is the goods right now. You need those sim odds, but pay attention for Saturday morning so I can give you the updates. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you know when it goes live. Best of luck on this UFC card. I'll be back again next Friday with another MMA Contenders.